All right, today we are digging into a mystery that spans the entire globe. The clues, they're totally invisible. The victims, they often have no idea they're even affected. And the stakes, well, they can be life and death. We're going on the hunt for something called hidden hunger.
A lot of us might take a multivitamin in the morning, right? Maybe you wonder if it's actually doing anything for you. But let's zoom that question way out. How do we figure out who really needs these essential nutrients? Not just for ourselves, but for whole countries, whole continents. How does anyone even begin to find where the most dangerous deficiencies are hiding?
So, that is the case we're cracking today. First, we'll look at the global blind spot where this problem thrives. Then we'll meet the detective agency that's on the case. We're going to peek inside their toolkit and then open up some of their biggest case files to see why this whole thing matters so much to all of us.
Okay, so every investigation starts with the problem. And this one has a name that's both catchy and kind of chilling. It's what experts call hidden hunger.
Now, this isn't the kind of hunger you feel with an empty stomach. No, hidden hunger is way more insidious. It's when your body is starved for essential vitamins and minerals. We're talking iron, vitamin A, iodine. It can seriously damage your health, especially a child's development, all without any obvious signs until it's really serious. It's a silent threat. And it's so easy to think, oh, that's a problem for developing countries, but that's just not true. The World Health Organization laid it out very clearly. Anemia, which is usually caused by iron deficiency, is a problem that affects people in both rich and poor countries. It's a shared global problem for sure. So, if the problem is global, and it's mostly invisible, how on earth do you even track it? Well, you need a seriously dedicated, worldwide team of detectives. So, let's meet them. The world's response is a system from the WHO called the Vitamin and Mineral Nutrition Information System. Yeah, it's a mouthful, so let's just call it VMNIS. And honestly, the best way to get your head around it is to picture it as a global detective agency whose only job is to hunt down clues about hidden hunger, wherever it might be. And this agency didn't just appear out of thin air. It goes all the way back to 1991. That's when the World Health Assembly said, hey, we need to get a handle on this. And they called for a global surveillance system. It started out as something a bit more basic, but it's grown into the VMINS we have today, a powerhouse that tracks 40 different clues for 17 different nutrients. Its power to see what's going on has just grown and grown. So how does a global detective agency like this actually work? What kind of tools are they using? Let's take a look inside the kit. Every good detective has a solid toolkit, right? And VMNIS has 4 main tools. First, there's the micronutrients database. That's like their giant evidence locker, a map of where nutrients are and aren't. Second, the biochemical indicator guides. Think of these like forensic field manuals that tell them exactly what a deficiency looks like in the data. Third, you've got the surveillance tools. These are the actual kits and software that countries use to go out and gather evidence. And finally, the global lab directory. Basically, a list of trusted labs that can analyze all the samples they collect. And that phrase, biochemical indicator, it sounds super technical, but really, it's just the detective's clue. It's a specific thing they can measure in a blood or urine sample, like the level of iron or iodine, that tells the hidden story of how an entire population is doing, nutritionally speaking. Okay, so with all this work, what has this detective agency actually found? Let's open up some of the big case files and see what the data shows about the world's health. The findings are pretty sobering. The data shows that a lack of vitamin A is the #1 cause of childhood blindness. It proves that iron deficiency hits young kids and women everywhere, whether a country is rich or poor. And get this, it shows that iodine deficiency, which can happen just because the soil in a region is naturally poor in iodine, is still a problem, even in parts of Europe. Each one of these isn't just a fact. It's a global health alert. Now, I want you to focus on this one year for a second, 2011. This was a huge year because this was the year that VMNS helped crack the anemia case wide open. The WHO published its first really comprehensive global estimates, and for the first time, the world saw just how massive the problem of iron deficiency really was. And the numbers were just staggering. The data revealed that a shocking percentage of little kids and women were suffering from anemia. This wasn't some minor issue, it was a silent epidemic hitting the most vulnerable people on the planet. VMNIs basically turned on a giant spotlight and showed it to the world.
And it's so important to remember the real human stakes here. We're not just talking about people feeling a bit tired. As the WHO has said for years, a simple vitamin A deficiency is the single biggest cause of kids going blind in developing countries. That's the kind of devastating reality that VMNIs helps us see and helps us fight.
So that really brings us to the big picture. Why does having a system like this matter so much? What is the whole point of all this global detective work?
Well, it's because all of this surveillance leads to action. With this solid data, governments can actually target their efforts where they're needed most. They can track their progress, and crucially, they can see if their programs like adding iodine to salt or giving out vitamin A supplements are actually working. It also gets everyone on the same page, uniting huge partners like the CDC and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation to fight the same fight. At the end of the day, that's the real magic of VMNS. It takes what would just be thousands of separate, scattered reports from all over the planet and weaves them together into one single clear map of human nutrition. It turns all that noise into a clear signal. So, the global vitamin detective has done its job. It's brought hidden hunger out of the shadows. And that leaves us with the final, most important question. And it's not just for governments, it's for all of us. Now that we can see the problem with such incredible clarity, what are we going to do about it? Thanks for joining me on this explainer.